Hey everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Crystal Kennedy, and this is the show where we bring you the day's biggest movie news and insight into what it all means. Joining me, as always, is AMC Movie News Senior Editor, Mr. John Campia.
Greetings, salutations, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, Crystal.
Good morning, John. No sharing today, huh?
No sharing today. Nothing to talk about today.
And we also have Associate Editor, Miss Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Hi there. What a wonderful weekend I just had. I just came from New Orleans for the Now You See Me junket, and what a fun city, great actors. I'm really excited for everyone to see the movie.
Woohoo! All right, well, we're going to do an all mailbag edition today, but we have two topics that we have to talk about first. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger is in talks to star in Hot Tub Time Machine directors Steve Pink's big-budget action comedy, The Toxic Avenger. Loosely based on Lloyd Kaufman's classic Trauma franchise, The Toxic Avenger is the tale of a high school kid who gets dunked in a vat of toxic waste by a corrupt chemical company. He survives the ordeal with one major side effect. Upon contact with toxic chemicals, he transforms into a monster with superhuman strength.
Just one side effect.
Schwarzenegger would play the Exterminator, a former Black Ops agent who trains Toxie to use his powers for good. Together, they take on the lurking menace created by the polluters and the polluters themselves. Amy Rose, do you think this is a good fit for both Arnold and the Toxie?
John, do you want to take this one first, sir?
I think this is great. Actually, honestly, if you were to, I wouldn't have thought of this, but when I think about it, this is a wonderful role for Arnold Schwarzenegger right now. Do something kind of stupid. Do something kind of ridiculous, like a Toxic Avenger. Trauma films are so classic, and The Toxic Avenger is obviously Lloyd Kaufman's most famous film that he's done. But I think this is a great move. I think this is great for Toxic Avenger because it brings that, cachet that Arnold Schwarzenegger brings with him, but it's also a great role for Schwarzenegger at this point in his career right now. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a perfect match. I love this news.
I'm really excited about it as well, not because I'm familiar with the material, because I'm not, but Arnold Schwarzenegger, this is the role, the Exterminator. This is such a good role for him. He's really good at comedy and action. I want to see him do a True Lies kind of thing again. I thought that was his best film, no question. And it just feels like you're saying, right on track. He's really charming and cheesy and wonderful, and I think this feels like a good fit.
Just glad he's not actually playing Toxie.
Yes, that would be very different.
A high school student.
A new poster has been released for The Hunger Games: Catching Fire, which hits AMC theaters and IMAX everywhere on November 22nd. The poster features Katniss Everdeen, played by Academy Award winner Jennifer Lawrence, standing on top of a mountain with a bow and arrow in hand. Amy Rose, what do you think of the new poster?
I am a big fan. I love these books, and I thought the first film was really good. And Jennifer Lawrence, I mean, how rad could one chick be? She's such a good actress. She's so funny. I recently saw a photo of her photobombing Sarah Jessica Parker, literally in background like this. She just has such a great sense of humor, and the books are really good, and I'm really excited to watch them continue to evolve because they get pretty political and uprising, and it's really good material, and I think this poster is great. It's just her standing on top of a mountain saying, "What's up?" with her bow and arrow, which she's so good at. So I'm really looking forward to this movie.
I'm not impressed. First of all, I surprisingly, I quite liked the first Hunger Games movie. It was much better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was handled quite well. I'm, on record as how much I hated the way the fast cuts and the shaky camera nonsense, very, very lazy filmmaking. I hated the way they handled action. But aside from that, I thought it was a really solid movie and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much, I decided to read the second two books.
Ooh.
Didn't like them. I'm not a fan of the second two books, I got to admit. But, who knows if I would have liked the first book or not. I never read the first book.
The best.
I just watched the movie and I liked it, so I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm not really impressed with this poster. It's one character standing there. So it is what it is. I'm sure if I was more excited about the upcoming movie, I would think maybe I'd be more excited by the poster. Maybe this, you know what? You can make an argument, Amy Rose, that, hey, if this was a Superman poster and it was the exact same thing, just Superman standing in the movie, you'd think it was badass. Yeah, I probably would. So I admit that. It probably has a lot to do with my anticipation for the movie.
Yeah.
But it's nothing bad about it. For me, it doesn't really, shake my world or anything like that.
Oh, like it. One quick note, John.
Yes.
Have you seen The Place Beyond the Pines yet?
Yes.
Okay, so to me, Derek Cianfrance, I know you're not a shaky cam fan, but I think that one scene where it's from the perspective of Ryan Gosling out of the motorcycle is an example of successful shaky cam. It wasn't done to death. It was a couple minutes. I thought it was really good.
But it also made sense.
Well, yeah.
For that scene, it made sense. But yeah, so that's an example
shaky
of when
cam
it's
done
used right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
absolutely.
Cianfrance.
Hey, listen, folks. You may have heard of this little movie opening up this week called Star Trek Into Darkness. It's opening up in AMC theaters everywhere. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com to get all your theater and showtime and, of course, movie tickets for Star Trek Into Darkness. But recently, I had a chance to get together with the cast of the film, including Captain Kirk himself, Mr. Chris Pine. And before we get to the mailbag, I want to share that conversation with you. So check out my conversation with Chris Pine about Star Trek Into Darkness. One of the things that jumped out to me with the first film was that whereas some of the characters try to emulate their counterparts from the other universe a little bit, it seemed like you really had the opportunity to kind of recreate Kirk a bit. Where do we see you going with his character now as we move into the next film?
I think it's because I'm getting older too. It's just it's a maturing, and it's you can't play the young rebel for the whole stretch of the story, and. For Kirk, in the first one he gets the captain, he gets the chair, and this one is really about him earning the chair and learning about what it means to be a leader and what it means to lead men and women into battle and life or death circumstances, and what it means when he follows his gut and his heart when it may actually inflict more damage than it's worth. And it's a real growing up process, and it's really, really, really hard for a guy like Kirk who's he can be a stubborn prick,
Now, one of the things the first one did so well was it stayed so true to the spirit of Star Trek, but also made it very modern, a lot more exciting. Do we see more of that in the next film? Like, the trailer seems to suggest they ratchet up the excitement a lot. Do we get to see that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the scale and scope of it, there's nothing comparable. It is huge. And just when you think like the last action sequence ends, there's a new one to be had, and it's even bigger, and it's even badder, and it's even louder. And really what JJ and company do best is they create really good, really dynamic character studies, And I think, hopefully, fundamentally, that'll be the big draw. That'll be the big draw here.
Awesome. Listen, we can't wait to have it on AMC screens. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Take care, man.
Thank you.
Once again, Star Trek Into Darkness opens in AMC theaters everywhere this week. Once again, head to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. Well, folks, it's that time of the show for Mailbag. This is how it works. You can email us a topic or question that you would like us to address on air anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. We get hundreds of emails a day, but we pick out a few every single day to address on the show. Chris Lee's got a bunch of them pulled out. So, Chris Lee, what do we got?
Jacob Ballard writes, I'm a huge fan. I recently saw the trailer for Ender's Game. I was wondering if we should be concerned about the quality of the film because the director is Gavin Hood, director of X-Men Origins Wolverine. I'm glad about the casting choices, though. Do you think Gavin Hood will weigh the film down, or is he a good director that had bad material?
This is a very, very good director that had some very, very bad material. Let's not forget, before doing X-Men Origins Wolverine, this guy won an Oscar. He won Best Foreign Language Film that he both wrote and directed. This guy knows how to tell stories on screen. Obviously, X-Men Origins Wolverine was a bad film, but that film had a bad script. They put in a lot of characters that didn't need to be there, and I just think he was a little bit out of his element, so I didn't think it worked. Now, how will he do with Ender's Game? That's a great question. I'm not going to sit here and say he'll do a great job, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. This is an Academy Award-winning filmmaker, so don't see his involvement as a negative. Amy Rose?
Yeah, I definitely think, sometimes good people have some bad things they produce. It happens to the best of us.
Even Spielberg, everybody.
Even Spielberg. And yeah, while you have said many times that the director is the most important piece, there's so many things that contribute to it as well. Not to mention, for a franchise like X-Men, there's a lot of other factors contributing to how the character is portrayed, etc. Now, Ender's Game is such an amazing book. I really liked it, and I think it lends itself really well to a film. The trailer was good, but I don't get too caught up in that because I've seen some amazing trailers for some bad films. There's, a common misdirection that can happen with that. But I mean, look at the cast. Harrison Ford, Viola Davis, Haley Steinfeld. I really think it's going to be good. I'm hopeful for it. And I think he's going to produce it. And as you said, he's an Academy Award winner, so we won't hold it against him that other film was kind of a colossal failure.
Donnie Anderson writes, "Hey guys, love the show. The ladies are beautiful and Campia is twice as awesome than before."
You.
Double for your money.
You.
I loved the Hitman movie. Timothy Olyphant was a super badass in that movie. Will there be a sequel to Hitman or will there not? Love you guys. Keep it up.
There is absolutely not a sequel for Hitman, but they are rebooting it. And it's funny because we actually addressed this not too long ago on the show, and I mentioned, they're rebooting Hitman. I don't know if I'm that excited about it. Maybe it'll be okay, maybe it won't. And that day I got an email from the president of the production company who's making Hitman saying, "Campia, what are you talking about? Why are you saying you're not excited about this?" He was joking around, and he was actually really good to talk to. So yes, there is one coming, but it's not a sequel. It is a reboot, so it won't be Timothy Olyphant. I wasn't really all that happy with the first Hitman film personally, although Timothy Olyphant is awesome. Amy Rose, what do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't that big of a fan either, and I love Timothy. I mean, not Justified, Deadwood, The Girl Next Door. He's such a good actor. Even I Am Number 4. He's very versatile and great, and I would love if they rebooted it with him because I don't think that film was really given a chance because it wasn't that strong. But good game. Let's see what happens.
Ben Kelly writes, "Hey guys, I love your show and I watch it every day. Do you think they would ever make a movie of the extremely popular television show Friends? The movie could be more about a reunion of the characters meeting back in New York. With the success of other TV movies like Sex and the City, which made around $415 million, do you think a Friends movie could ever be made?"
This is a really great question because this is a great show to use as an example for this. Friends is a great example of a show. Look, some people misunderstand me. I say, no, you can't take a show that isn't getting good ratings and turn it into a movie, especially if it's on TV right now, because, hey, if nobody's watching the show for free on TV, what makes you think they're going to go out tomorrow and watch it and pay $10 to go see it? But Friends is different. Friends was a hyper popular show for so long, with 7, 8, 9 seasons. I can't even remember how long.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah,
right?
it ran for a long time, super successful, but this is also a show that went off air a long time ago. All the cast tried to then go on and have movie careers, and all of them failed.
That's not true.
Let me finish. With the exception of Jennifer Aniston, who has never on her own had a hit film of her own. So you have all the other characters who have failed in trying to have movie careers. You've had none of them try their own new TV shows. I think Matt LeBlanc has had one, which was really good, but they can't get people to watch it, despite the fact that it's really quite good. You had Perry has had like 3 different TV shows now, and all of them have been canceled. And it's just too far removed. So if you had proposed this question to me, say, 5 years ago, I'd say, you know what, this could work. Do it. I think it would have been a good idea. But at this point, I just don't know that it could now. I'd be interested if they tried it, but I just don't know that it would work at this point. Amy Rose, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been too long, unfortunately. It was a really great show, great ensemble cast. With Sex and the City, though, they pretty much continued to strike while the iron was hot.
Yeah.
The show went off, and everyone loved those characters, and it really, crossed like genders as well. It was both male and female because the writing was so clever and the characters were so great. And I feel that same way about Friends, but I think it's been too long. And would I see it? Yeah, but I can't say that it excites me that much. And like Arrested Development is a really good example. That went off the air and it continued to build momentum after the fact. DVD sales were great. And so they're, launching that again. We're going to get a movie. I know you don't think we are, but we will.
Not.
We are. And Netflix, we're going to get new episodes. So I do think that there is a formula to it, and I think it's been too long for Friends.
I was a huge Friends fan, and I wouldn't go see a Friends
Yeah.
movie. But Sex and the
too
City,
long.
I'd go back for any movie they
The
gave me.
second film was awful.
I still
The
liked
first
it.
film was great, but the second one was so cheesy.
Agree to disagree. Alex C. writes, "Thank you for being so truthful about all the movie news.
You're welcome.
John is wise, the hosts are beautiful, and the special guests are awesome. My question is simple. Do you believe Star Wars Episode 7 will out box office Avengers 2?
Oh my God, what a great question. That is a great question.
That is a great question.
Okay, because here is the classic example of establishment versus momentum. In establishment, Star Wars, hands down. Hands down, Star Wars. We're going back 30 plus years, the greatest trilogy ever made, and there is only one trilogy, Star Wars Episodes 4, 5, and 6. You're talking about just the greatest story ever told. However, that being said, momentum, give it all to Avengers. Avengers is coming off the greatest comic book movie of all time with the first one. It's got an active going universe right now with the Captain Americas and the Thors and the Iron Mans and everything else. And not to mention with momentum, Star Wars is coming off of 3 crappy movies. And we haven't had a great Star Wars film in a very, very long time. For all those reasons, as much as it pains me to say it, Avengers 2 will make more money at the box office. However, Star Wars Episode 8 will make more money at the box office than Avengers 3. That's my prediction based on nothing. Amy Rose, what do you think?
Based off nothing. I don't necessarily agree, but I don't think it's such a clear-cut who will win the box office battle. Star Wars, like you said, it's established, and it also has momentum that Avengers might have more right now because comic book films are the rage. But Star Wars brings in generations.
Yep.
My parents and me and everyone else in between. And while we are very firm on our lack of love for the prequels, there's a lot of people that really liked them and that really enjoyed them. And it was the Star Wars they grew up with opposed to the better films that we grew up with. So I really do think this will cross generations. And JJ is a very, very hot director. And, Star Trek, hopefully, Into Darkness is going to be really great as well. And getting the old gang back together with Carrie Fisher and Harrison and all of them, I think this has the formula for success. And I think it's really going to give Avengers a run for the money.
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They are both going to be huge.
Huge.
They're both going to be huge.
But I think Star Wars has a lot of nostalgia that Avengers doesn't have. Avengers doesn't have nostalgia. I love it, and I love the franchise, and I love comic book films, but Star Wars is special.
But Star Wars has an uphill battle right now, I think. I think it's an uphill battle. Let's put it this way. I hope Star Wars makes more money. I just think Avengers 2 will make more.
It's living on top of the mountain for me. I don't know about this uphill battle. I'm excited.
I think for the younger generations, like younger than us, they're going to go see Avengers over Star Wars because they don't have that for Star Wars
but
that
some
they have
like
for
the
the
prequels,
superheroes.
and they're younger.
Some.
Hugh C. writes, I was excited to hear about the Gremlins franchise reboot or revival and got to wondering if they will be using puppets for the Gremlins or would they go CGI. I think I'd prefer puppets, as they should have done for Yoda in my opinion, but know that they are capable of doing great CGI, Golem for example. What is your opinion on the issue?
This is a really back and forth battle. Amy Rose, you want to start this one
Yeah,
off?
I'd love to. So the thing about Golem, though, is that it was also motion capture technology, which really, it's different because it's not just straight CGI creating something that's not there. Andy Serkis is a master at this, as we know, and I really think that brings a certain level of depth and realism to a character, opposed to just throwing gremlins on the screen that are just running around, or like the chipmunks. Those were creepy. That was gone wrong for me. But I really do think, Yoda should have been a puppet. And the Muppets, I think that's part of why they're so special, is because they're puppets. They're magical and brings us kind of back to our youth. So I think kind of the answer lies in between. If they did motion capture gremlins, that would be weird. But I definitely think that in this case, they should use puppets.
It really depends on the context of the shots. For example, like with puppets, back when they did Empire Strikes Back, it was cool to have a puppet going, "You will be," rah, 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 and eyes going, and mouth that just was like that. That was fine at the time. But today it's a little bit different. If you have static shots and you only have a creature that needs to move very minimally and not have a lot of action or movement, then I believe you go for the practical effect. You go for the puppet in many cases. But for movement or action or anything like that, more photorealism, you're going to have to go with CGI. So there could be a good balance there. There could be close-up shots, more intimate non-movement shots, you use the practical effects, but then obviously whenever you have Stripe or Gizmo running around, then I think you got to go with CGI, because things they got away with 20 years ago on screen I don't think would fly with movie audiences today. So I think you could do a balance.
Yeah, that's like nostalgic and its cheesiness, and I think the audiences are much more clever and their expectations are much higher nowadays because of how good special effects are.
I just hope they don't change the looks of Gizmo.
I love
Me
Gizmo.
too.
It's my favorite.
Snuggle.
Justice Stemmons, right? I'm a huge Hulk fan and love all of his movie adaptations. My favorite, however, is Ang Lee's and Eric Bana's take on the character, even though Norton's was fresh off the comic pages and Ruffalo brought the funniest and most unique take on Bruce Banner yet. My question is, what exactly was wrong with the 2003 movie version of the character that made it a failure? And if anything should happen to Mark Ruffalo that won't allow him to play the character, disagreements, injury, etc., would it seem okay for Bana or Norton to reprise their role on the Hulk?
I didn't hate that first Hulk film as much as a lot of people do, but the reasons it failed were a couple. Number one, there wasn't really a strong story. There wasn't really a strong story there. It was a father and son kind of movie. Secondly, the villain was pretty much non-existent, and he just kind of popped up out of nowhere. There's no villain, there's no villain, there's no villain. Now you have Phantom Nick Nolte, who will suck him down into a vast whirlpool of water. What? And then, of course, there was the infamous Hulk dogs scene, where the big fight in the movie is the Hulk fighting a hulked-out poodle. You think I'm joking, but I'm not. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. These 3 dogs, that's the big fight in the scene. I really did appreciate Ang Lee's comic book visual style that he tried. Totally. I thought that was really gutsy and neat to try. But for that reason, it didn't really work, even though I love Eric Bana and I think he's great. If you're going to replace Mark Ruffalo and you want to stay in the continuity, Eric Bana's Hulk is not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, the character that Mark Ruffalo playing is the Ed Norton character. That's the same character. It's just that Mark Ruffalo took over the role. But technically speaking, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that Hulk film with Edward Norton is the film that leads in to this Hulk that we have now. They're the same character. So if you had to replace Ruffalo with one of the 2 actors, either Bana or Norton, it makes more sense to go with Norton, although I don't think Marvel will ever work with Edward Norton again. So that's why I don't think the 2003 film worked, and I think if you have to choose between the 2, you got to go with Norton. Amy Rose?
Yeah, I definitely thought they both brought something different to the role. I mean, Edward Norton, American History X, is like one of my favorite movies still. He was insane. That if there's ever been an Oscar-worthy performance, it's that. And I definitely think he's, gone downhill a little bit with some of the roles he's picked, but I don't think he'd want to reprise his role as the Hulk. I don't. He's just not there in his career. And I like Eric Bana. I do. I think he's really likable. He's a good actor. But I like Ruffalo's Hulk the best. I do. I think he brings both Bruce Banner and the Hulk, like, even though that's mostly CGI and we don't really know what he brings to that role, but I think he brings that, awkward, introverted, brilliant, like, just a lot to it. I think he's a really fine actor, and I really loved him in Avengers, and it does look like he's coming back for Avengers 2, which is great. So I don't know. I mean, we still dream that a World War Hulk film is going to happen, but as we've been hearing again and again, all these other Marvel characters, they're trying to launch Ms. Marvel and all these other characters. I think it's going to be a long time before we see another standalone film, and I don't think they would dip back into actors who played them. I think they would try a young, hot, fresh actor.
Yeah, Edward Norton's one of my favorites.
You can't go too young with Dr. Bruce Banner.
Well, not too young, but Edward Norton's a little older than should play him now.
Mark Ruffalo's the best.
He's the best.
Andreas writes, "Hey boys and girls, my name is Andreas. I'm from Greece and I love the show. I have a question for my friend John.
Oh.
You said that you don't have a problem with remakes because no matter what, we still have the original ones. That also goes for Star Wars original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6. Or am I the only one that thinks it would be nice to have that? Love Star Wars."
Well, Andreas, you go right for the heart, don't you? Because if you're going to talk to me, if you want to go the most extreme example with me, talk about the original trilogy.
Because you have said that many times.
I have. And so I'm going to tell you right now, I have what I called my 4 rules of remakes that I like studios to abide by. It's not always the case. Sometimes there are exceptions. But one of the main rules is reboot the film if the majority of the current movie-going generation has not seen the original. Now, you don't always have to stick with that, but that's just one of my guidelines. Obviously, with Star Wars, despite how old it is, the vast majority of the people who are the movie-going audience today have still seen Star Wars. So I don't think there's need for it. But my overall guiding premise still holds. You can reboot Star Wars, make a remake. That's fine. You know why? Because if it sucks, I still have my original trilogy. It's not like all the picture on my original trilogy DVDs suddenly go blurry if you make a bad remake. I still have them. They still exist, and they're still mine to cherish. So go ahead and take a shot if you want to think. Now, of course, they can't do that because they're still going on with the Star Wars universe. So you can't have Superman, Man of Steel 2, and then reboot Superman while Man of Steel 3 is coming out. So that doesn't make any sense. But to highlight my love of this, and talking about current movie-going audiences having seen everything, this is absolutely true. You're going to think I'm exaggerating. I am not. A few years ago, I moved back to East Coast Canada because I had lived out west for a while. So I moved back. I'm single, looking to meet people, so I start dating around a lot. You know, I go with a lot of people, and I kid you not. One question I would ask, there were several questions, but one of the questions I would always ask everybody I get set up on a first date with, like whether it's like some 20-year-old girl, some 21-year-old girl, first question was, have you watched and what do you think of Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi? And on a couple of occasions, most of the time they'd seen them when we talk about it, on the couple of occasions that they said, oh, I've never seen those, I swear to God, I'd say,
I'm out.
then you know what? We got nothing left to talk about. It didn't matter how hot they were. It didn't matter anything. It's like, you know what? We've got nothing left to talk about. Let's enjoy the rest of our dinner and then part ways as friends. Because I've got no time for you if you haven't seen and appreciate the genius of the original Star Wars trilogy. I'm not talking about the mess of the prequels. I'm not talking about the stupid garbage Clone Wars nonsense. I'm talking the original Star Wars masterpiece. You haven't seen it? You and I got nothing to talk about, lady. Hit the road. So yeah, that's my diplomatic way of dealing with that stuff. So Amy Rose,
Super
how about
diplomatic. Geeky girls prevail. What's up? I am less enthusiastic about remakes than you've talked about on the show. Well, sure, I agree. It doesn't hurt the originals. I just don't think that a movie should be remade unless you're going to make it better. How are you going to make the original Star Wars films better? I really don't know how that's possible. They're amazing, and the universe is continuing, so let's do fresh content. But, you know, while a remake doesn't, you know, hurt the originals, I really don't see a point. I understand from the studio's perspective, they want to capture that nostalgia and the success of the original and kind of, you know, keep old fans and bring in new fans from the content material. But I'm not a big fan, and most of the time it's not better than the original, so don't touch it and give its original stuff. But yes, Star Wars. Luckily, we get along that way, John, because we're both obsessed with Star Wars. Thank God. I'm sure you wouldn't have hired me otherwise.
First question of anybody I hire, have you seen Star Wars? No? Hit the road.
Woo! True statement.
So
True.
no,
Star Wars and Avengers, the two questions. Jacob Staff writes, hey, just started watching the show, and I have a question for you. Over the last 7 to 8 years, there has been speculation of the production of a Halo film based off the award-acclaimed games and books. The script and screenplay has had directors such as Peter Jackson's names attached to it, but was shelved due to fights between Universal and Paramount over rights to the film. Obviously, due to the success of the game alone, this would be a successful movie. However, with the transition from a game to film, what would be the biggest worries and things to look out for in the making of the film?
Just a couple quick corrections, Jacob. The film didn't get shelved because of disagreements over rights. The film got shelved because the studios pulled their financing. Studios backed out. And one of the big reasons studios backed out, and this was a big thing going back to my movie blog days, they didn't get on board with where Peter Jackson wanted to go with it. And Peter Jackson wanted to bring this never directed before guy, Neil Blomkamp, who went on to direct District 9.
District 9.
But he had never directed a single film before. He had never been an assistant director on a single major motion picture before. And the studios kind of stood back and said, well, Peter, because they let Peter be the producer on it, they're like, Peter, you want to hand a $200 million film to a guy who's never directed a film before? And Peter said yes, and Peter would talk about all the time about how passionate he was about Halo, which fans like me then brought the question, well then, Peter Jackson, who I love, if you're so passionate about it, why aren't you directing it? Why don't you direct it? If you're that passionate about it and you're telling the truth that you're really that passionate about it, why don't you direct it? Because the studios would have been all over it. He said, no, let's get this kid who's never directed anything before and let him do it. And I said it was a bad idea. I still believe it was a bad idea, despite the fact that Neil went on to do a really good job with District 9. But District 9 was a movie he's made before. Like, he did a short film because it's his own material that he wrote. So that's a little bit different. And they made it for like $40 million. That's different than taking on material that you didn't create, that you haven't lived in that universe for 15 years already to make. And I thought it was a bad idea. So the studios, they wouldn't budge. So the studio said that we're pulling our financing. Now, every video game fan who loves a particular game always says, well, if they made this movie, it'll be successful. Well, out of the 40 plus video game movies that we've had, that has really proved to not be true. But I still think they should have made a Halo film like 4 years ago. Is Halo's as popular today as it was 4 years ago? No, it's just not. I mean,
Halo 3 was a huge success.
Huge,
huge.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. It was much bigger 5 years. Halo, the popularity of Halo 5-6 years ago was fanatical. It was crazy popular. Halo 3 is a very successful game, but Halo as a brand is not as popular and not as successful as it was 5-6 years ago when they should have made this movie. I still got to believe somewhere deep down that at some point, somebody's going to make this film. I just hope they do it sooner rather than later. But will it happen? I don't know, but I got to believe that it will. Amy Rose, what do you think?
I think Halo lends itself so great to a game. And, you know, there are very strong narratives, especially this one, sci-fi. It's just such a good one. Now, Neil Blomkamp, I would love to see him do this. Obviously, now he's proven that this is very much in his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
District 9 was amazing. Elysium, everything I've seen for it looks really epic. Matt Damon, Jodie Foster. I would love if they came back, the dynamic duo of Jackson and Blomkamp came back and did this film. I think it's really good. You do bring up a good point. While, you know, Halo 4, I think, sold like over 200 million copies, I think that it's really hard to obviously convert that on screen. We have had some successful films. Tomb Raider was a pretty decent success, and there's been a couple other, you know, games to film adaptations, but overall the audience is a little different, and sometimes people who will buy a game might not pay for it to see the movie. It doesn't always translate that way. I think we'll know a lot more coming up with Assassin's Creed with Michael Fassbender, and I think that's
Good
really
point.
going to help pave the way. But Halo really lends itself really well to a game, and you know, provided
To a movie?
to a movie. It's proven it's great as a game several times over. But yeah, it lends itself really well. The narrative, the story is really cool. And to get a really great up-and-coming sci-fi director like Blomkamp, I think that is the recipe for success. And I personally would really want to see this film.
All right, folks, well, listen, that's all of our time for today. But listen, while I've got you, before you do anything else, stop what you're doing. Take a second and click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And make sure to go out and see a movie tonight. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. And once again, click that subscribe button. I want to thank, as always, our very lovely host, Miss Chrysalie Kennedy.
Thanks for having me.
Our AMC Movie News Associate Editor, Miss Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Thank you, lovelies.
And most of all, thank you to you guys. Listen, the most important part of the show is not what we have to say. It's what you have to say. So make sure you jump on down into the comments section of this video. Leave your thoughts on any or all the topics that we discussed here today. Things you agree with, things you don't agree with. I guarantee you we read every single comment that goes in there. So until next time, my name's John Campia for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.